People, welcome to Newspaper Breakdown. It's the 6th of the 2nd. I hope we are all fine. A few news stories, some interesting. There wasn't as many news stories that gripped me today. So we'll go through these. Liz Truss, the shortest serving Prime Minister ever, wrote a 4,000-word essay in the Sunday Telegraph yesterday, trying to blame everyone for her inability to do anything of use and forcing her to resign. In her 49 days in office, she managed to create an economic crisis that we are still feeling today. However, she has blamed the powerful economic establishment for refusing to prioritise growth in the way that she believed it should be done, which was kamikaze and blow it all up. She blamed Whitehall, the IMF, Joe Biden, and even the Tory party. Honestly, at this point, the only thing she missed was ending it with, "I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids." She also said, "I assumed upon entering Downing Street that my mandate would be respected." She did not have a mandate. She was voted in by Tory members, and that was it. That is not a mandate. If you want to claim that the Tory party have a mandate, it is the original one from 2019. That is the only mandate that they have, because that's the only thing that people actually voted for. It's the same problem that we have continually with Brexit. There is no mandate on Brexit. There isn't a single one. Because when you voted, it was just to leave the EU. There was no specification for it. There was nothing. So as long as you left the EU, that's it. There's nothing else. So this conception that you have a massive mandate to be able to do whatever the fuck you like because of Brexit is horseshit. It continues to be horseshit. It is a lie. And it's something that we, as grown-ups, as sentient fucking beings, have to start accepting. Liz Truss didn't have a mandate. Sunak doesn't have a mandate. The only mandate that they have is 2019. That manifesto. That's it. Continual lies from these fucks. She tried to argue that the largest unfunded tax cut, which is what she did, in 50 years, and don't forget, it was completely and utterly unfunded what she was doing. She kept on saying how right she was, continually. However, she was the only one to think that she was right. Truss ignored all of the key financial institutions in the country, and was shocked to find out that the financial markets didn't like that. Blaming the likes of the OBR, Bank of England and the Treasury, the institutions that give credibility to our economy, showed that she is still remarkably delusional. And this you'll find with MPs from fucking Boris Johnson to Truss to Jeremy Corbyn. No ability to take any responsibility for their own actions. It is always someone else's fault. I get, and there's a story coming up where it is very important where we remember that MPs are human beings. But their continual inability to act like grown-ups, to act like human beings, really does make it hard to believe it. On the plus side, she has probably chucked in yet another chasm into the Tory party, because those on the right, the proper hardcore right of the Tory party, still think that Liz Truss is just cut all the tax so there's no money during a fucking cost of living crisis. That's the way to go about it. And so they're going to be against Sunak and Hun, who have given us the highest tax burden in 70 years. which is very different to what Truss wanted to do, which was just to cut all tax for everything and ignore inflation and ignore everything. They're both wrong, by the way. They can both be wrong. Right? Anyway, a report from the House of Commons Treasury Select Committee has criticised the UK's payment system regulator for planning to hand off responsibility for recompensing individuals targeted by scams to the payment operator Pay UK. The report says that the regulator must take responsibility itself and not give the banking industry the opportunity to further delay its implementation. The regulators plan to allow Pay UK, which is a non-regulatory body that is sponsored by banks, to be in control of this. It's flawed. You can't have a non-regulatory company that is sponsored by banks, given money by banks, to be in control of reimbursing people for scams. It raises quite serious conflict of interests. Consumers lost more than £580 million in 2021. This was over authorised push payments. This is that particular fraud where scammers trick someone into sending them money. It's a 40% increase year on year. Maybe as a species we are getting dumber. That's something that we do also have to take into account. Fraud is the most common crime in the UK. In a bill that's currently making its way through Parliament, banks and building societies will be required to set up a system to reimburse victims of push payment fraud. Instead of using their own power to force banks to reimburse victims, regulators have asked Pay UK to do it. It sounds wrong, doesn't it? We have a regulator who should be in charge and saying, right, banks, you have to pay if people get scammed. Over £100 is what they're saying. But the regulator have gone, no. Why should we do all of the work when we can get a private company who gets paid by banks? Why don't they do it instead? It's a type of privatisation you just don't expect. It's a pointless. They're literally trying to get fucking private companies to regulate themselves. You can't have a bank regulate itself. It's madness. We've already seen in 2008 what happens when a bank regulates itself. The largest study in parliamentary workers has found that staff working for MPs face similar levels of psychological distress as frontline NHS staff, with toxic workloads and fears over their safety. Many of the 315 workers that were studied were struggling with vicarious trauma of helping desperate people in worsening cost of living crisis. And some of these are like 22 years old. You're having these fucking poor 22-year-olds having to deal with suicidal people who are struggling to live. It is madness. You can't be expecting that. MP caseworkers have seen a rise in the number of suicidal people seeking help in the past year. 42% of MP staff met with the clinical definition of experiencing psychological distress, which is 3 times higher than the general population, and similar levels to NHS staff. 2/3 said they have feared for their own or colleagues' safety, with almost 40% hiding the nature of their work from friends and family. It is one of the things that we do not consider, those working for MPs, and we put a lot onto MPs. They are treated quite badly. They're given a lot of money for it, a lot of opportunity for it, and they have the most power. They're able to fundamentally change the country for the worse, it turns out. But we do also have to consider that they are human beings. The people working for them are human beings, and how they're treated. You think of how people treat someone at the end of the phone if their fucking delivery goes badly, and now ramp that up by a fucking 1,000, and you'll see the type of level that people would treat caseworkers, MP caseworkers, if they were desperate, suicidal, and having to attempt to feed children. You see how that's done, and you see the people who have to deal with that day in, day out, day in, day out. There would be a hell of a lot of trauma, as it says there, vicarious trauma through that. A survey by Hygiene Poverty Charity, Beauty Bank, and the British Dental Association revealed 81% of teachers say some children in their school have no access to toothpaste, with 41% saying this leads to them being socially excluded. The Royal College of Paediatricians and Child Health recently warned that toothbrushes were becoming a luxury item for some families, and that the state of children's dental health is a national disgrace. Tooth decay is the most common reason for young people to be administered into hospital ahead of acute tonsillitis. The latest NHS dental figures show 44.8% of children attended a dental appointment last year, compared to 58.7% in 2019 to 2020. But this is the thing about dentists as a whole. 91% of practices in England could not take in new adult NHS patients, and 71% were not accepting new child NHS patients. It is another cost of living issue. Every part of life is affected when you have no money. This is the truth of it, and dentists are fucking expensive. It's the only part of our health that is as expensive as it is. I may be wrong on that. There may be another part, but it's not something that I've used, so I'm not 100% sure. But I know that dentists are fucking expensive, and we have to pay for it. And you've got more and more dentists not willing to accept NHS patients because they don't make as much money from them. And now we have children where you've got fucking toothbrushes are a luxury item. They don't have access to toothpaste. That's madness. The children do not want to brush their teeth. It is boring. It's not something that they want to do. But give them the fucking choice, for Christ's sake. 2 stories left. The results of a University of Sussex study found that gardens who use pesticides can expect to see fewer birds, with scientists urging people to stop spraying your garden with poison in order to halt bird decline and attempt a wildlife-friendly practice. That's it on that story. Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, I was going to do a story on the planned reforms to the Mental Health Act 1983. However, it is remarkably complex, and I haven't got my head around it, so I'm not going to be fucking trying to bumble my way through that for you. Okay, hopefully you're aware that when I go through a story, I tend to have some form of a grasp or an opinion on it. the Mental Health Act stuff was just unexpected potential effects to people, and it's looking to do certain things and stuff all over the place. So maybe I will do some more research, get me head more around it, and do it another day for you, because it is interesting. It is important to always know what's coming. But an unannounced inspection of Eastwood Park Prison in Gloucestershire has led to a concerning report, and the prison being given its lowest, or the lowest, safety rating. The prison inspector called the move very unusual, but the gaps in care and the lack of support for the most vulnerable and distressed women were concerning. The inspection found that women held in segregation were placed in appalling and dilapidated cells, covered in graffiti, with one cell was blood spattered, and others with excessive scratches on the walls. Excessive scratches tend to show mass distress from the individual previous occupant in the room. There were 2 incidents of women taking their own lives, and a 128% increase in self-harm compared to the last inspection, which was before the pandemic. Too much time in cells, a lack of purposeful activity, frustrations about basic requests taking too long to resolve, insufficient support with mental health issues, and not enough contact with friends and family are a selection of the reasons for women both killing themselves and the mass rise in self-harm. The Ministry of Justice also released figures revealing that there were 2 incidents of self-harm every hour across female estates. Continued lack of funds add to the severe lack of training and staff shortages. Fucking, you know the word. In prisons. Once again, this is another of the wide-ranging web that has come from everything from austerity through to Brexit and economic disasters that the Tory party have brought onto us. There is not a part in this country that has improved in the past 13 years, except maybe our racism has gotten better. That's it for today. You may be able to tell that my throat isn't fantastic. So hopefully a bit of sleep will improve that. I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye.